Hello, good evening, and welcome back. So, as we all know, the Prime Minister, 55 years of age, contracted the coronavirus after being tested positive on the 27th of March, which is when he started self-isolating. He has since been sent to hospital and is now in an intensive care unit, as reported by Russian outlets first, and said, no, that's definitely not true, by the British government, before later admitting, yes, that is actually true. As we have here from the BBC, coronavirus, Boris Johnson moved to intensive care as symptoms worsen. This is very much breaking at the moment. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been moved to intensive care in hospital after his coronavirus symptoms worsened, Downing Street has said. He is in intensive care. He is not on a ventilator as of yet, but he was given oxygen once admitted. The issue with this, as it leads to pneumonia essentially, which is then difficulty for the lungs to provide enough oxygen to the rest of the vital organs. And we all know that oxygen is the primary power source for us. That is what we need most often, most frequently. That the pneumonia causes the lack of the binding to be able to occur within the alveoli and bronchiolae of the lungs, so that it isn't able to diffuse into the blood in order to get to the rest of the vital organs. Therefore, of course, ventilators and oxygen are put into place in order to provide sufficient oxygen so that even when the lungs aren't operating at optimum capacity, they can still get enough oxygen in them because of the increased external application through the ventilators and added oxygen in order to provide the body with enough oxygen. It is basically as simple as that. And as an aside, oxygen is also an amazing hangover cure, as found out by the World War II RAF pilots. So while Boris Johnson is in hospital, he has apparently still been leading from his hospital bed, but given that it is down to the whim of his doctor or doctors in order to decide what is best for him and if he is in a fit state to lead the country, Dominic Raab, or as Jonathan Pye has called him, Demonic Raab, has taken over as interim leader. And this isn't as bad as it might first sound, given that Demonic Raab is called as such because he isn't afraid to call out feminists for them being so antithetical to the idea of Western liberty and libertarianism as they are. So he's more of a staunch defender of freedom and also to implement traditional values where appropriate. Unfortunately, given this current time that the Conservatives are, of course, power grabbers, that he is still keeping with the coronavirus lockdown and saying that it is too early to decide to relax even the smallest part of these measures, and that yes, they must all be in place from now until, well, we don't know yet, but they'll keep their tri-weekly reviews, or their reviews every 3 weeks, 1.5 fortnights, until they think that they can lift them. Not that they'll ever lift them back to pre-coronavirus conditions, of course. But with something like this, with Boris Johnson, of course, contracting it after not really taking much care about getting ill himself, as in meeting people, shaking hands, touching, being in close proximity, and all that, that although, of course, it's not nice for anybody to contract such a disease, it is nice at least to know that, as Theresa May said, in fact, that it doesn't discriminate based on your position. You can be young or old or rich or poor, but you can still get this disease. That, as they have on the side here, power is no protection from harm, as written by Laura Kuenssberg for the BBC. And that is definitely the case here. So it does seem to strike at the heart of everybody, and it is one of those things whereby any virtue signaller will say whatever they think will get them praise until, of course, they are affected by it. And we had that with the tank strikes, essentially, back during the Blair days, of which has all gone under official secrecy acts, of course, saying, well, hey, we don't seem to have enough fuel, and it seems to be difficult. They're saying that the police will deal with that, and the police are saying we don't have enough fuel to deal with it. You might want to do something. They went, yes, cool. We'll allow it. We'll let them through. As happened almost 20 years ago now, isn't it? Yeah, crikey. when you feel old. And it's a similar thing now, whereby that no matter what position you are in, you are still affected by it. So, as it unfolds, the Queen has been kept informed about Mr. Johnson's health by Number 10, according to Buckingham Palace. Well, of course she has. She is still the leader, even if the Prime Minister is the de facto leader. And at what point does she become leader again? Because I'm sure she'd have some quite radical changes if the monarch then gets taken in as well. And it's like, well, I guess we should revert back to the Queen at this point before we go down the list of people that nobody really knows about. Of course, they're trying to push out Rishi Sunak before too long because, oh, hey, he's Indian. And yes, of course, he's married to a lady who's inherited billions of pounds of wealth coming from one of the richest families in India. But, you know, we're trying to push him as the next Prime Minister, as the iconoclast has gone into great depth of, to say that they're trying to ready the UK for the next Prime Minister being foreign, because we don't have the same protection as America does, to say that their president must be American, at least one parent of whom has to be American, and then to be born in America, of course. Not to say that's birthright citizenship, given that at least one parent does have to be American, but we don't have the same protections over here. Which someone say, oh, what, you mean that you're going to limit a position to be somebody of your nationality? Well, when it comes to something which is pertinent particularly to the running of the country, then yes, because you don't want external influence and you don't want somebody putting another country before the country of which they're in charge of. Of course, it's meant to stop any foreign agents interfering in order to put other countries first. It isn't a foolproof system, given that we do have some British people who like to side with any of Britain's enemies. Jeremy Corbyn is, of course, a fine example of that. Just when you think he's doing something right, he'll invite the IRA over. Thinking, you're either missing the point, or you really have great disdain for the United Kingdom, but he's gone now, thankfully. Now it's just Keir Starmer, the guy who thought, oh, a joke about a airport being attacked because the plane was late, that's definitely real, and that man must be prosecuted and sentenced. Yes, there was Keir Starmer's handiwork, of course, as he was in charge at the time. So he's clearly not one for free speech. But nonetheless, the essence in saying that the leader of the country must be the nationality of the country of which they're leading, of course, I think holds water and makes a lot of sense given the grounds of saying that you don't want somebody else putting another country first. And yes, I know that there are some saying that that's what Jews do by putting Israel before America or England, wherever. So, well, maybe that's not my point at all. My point is wherever they are from or draw allegiance from. And therefore, as we don't have the same protections, then we can definitely fall victim to that. So I think after Rishi Sunak, at that point, we might have the Queen saying, well, maybe I should step in again. Okay. Yeah, why not? But thankfully, the response from the other people within the political establishment, even from other parties, have been to try and be positive and wish them well. Sakar, of course, being a exception by wishing the family well, but not himself, of course. But we have that from Nicola Sturgeon and Leo Varadkar, the Irish Prime Minister, with his well-wishing as well. So it's nice to see that they can come together when it comes down to the individual, and it is important to see that they might have disagreements based on policies, but when it comes down to the individuals, that at that level, if they have that much sensibilities behind them, to know that they all want what's best for the country, they just have different ideas of how to achieve it. Some people think that individuals should be left to their own devices and do whatever it is that they want to do, and other people think that the individuals have to be told what to do, and of course everybody else falls in somewhere between the two of them. But that is what politics has become. So until next time, of course, we wish Boris Johnson a full and speedy recovery in order to come back when he can. But I'm ever hopeful that Dominic Raab will pick up the mantle and lead during the time being. And of course, that'll be a great opportunity for him to prove himself in election leaderships to come, just as we see vice presidents doing the same in America. Joe Biden not being a great example of this, though. So, until next time, stay safe. Ensure that you don't get too badly affected as well. Of course, it's better to get it sooner than later and get over it. But if you get it at a time and it's more severe, and it's when the health service is already overworked because it has to deal with too many people and there aren't enough people paying in, then you're going to struggle. So keep those freedoms, keep those spirits high, and have a good one.